on the ground. I'm not coming down. I wanna go higher, higher, higher than that.
Welcome back to the Business is Human podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession, and we're here to bring you episodes that blend meaningful work with profitable success. Here to steward what I call the age of humanity. I believe if we transform the way we work, we can transform the way that we live. As always, my friendly request, if you like what you hear, hit subscribe so you don't miss any episode, and leave a review to tell the other humans that they might like it too. Always looking to help you and connect with others. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Hey, what if you could have your best summer ever? No, really. I have built a 90-day reset to help you build a bridge from where you are now to where you truly want to be by helping you navigate uncertainty, learn about your nervous system, get a complete inventory of your unique gifts and talents so that you can use them in a meaningful way. Listen, I've thought of it all, and we can use this summer to do it. 90 days, May to August. Hit the link, schedule some time with me to see if this is for you, or just sign up because it probably is. Limited space, limited time. Let's go. Let's do it. Hey, friends. Welcome back to Business is Human. I'm your host, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession, and today we're diving into a conversation that might just shift the way that you lead, collaborate, and connect, especially if you work in a mixed gender environment, men and women together. So this episode is about the science-based differences between men and women and why, especially in a post-2020 environment, we need both perspectives equal as co-creators in the future of work. This topic tends to push people's buttons, and I want to approach it. I'm not talking about war against men and women or saying one is right over the other. It's about how to work better together with more trust, with more connection, and less pressure of one being right or wrong. Because in the age of humanity, which is here, and I am begging people to come and lead it well by understanding our human needs and how we operate, it's no longer about proving ourselves. It's about knowing ourselves intensely, intimately. And in order to know ourselves well, then we have to know about one another and how we can work best together. So, whether you're listening to this solo or maybe you'll use it to go back and listen with a business partner, colleague, someone of the opposite sex, to lean in and really understand one another better with love and logic, because we're also going to share the science as we do around here. So let's just dive into some science, shall we? This is research from Stanford, Harvard, and the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm going to say these statements and know that we've all adapted to some degree, but generally speaking, this is what the science says. Male brains are typically optimized for intrahemispheric communication, favoring focused task execution, spatial reasoning, and goal orientation. Female brains tend to show stronger interhemispheric communication, enhancing intuition, empathy, multitasking, and verbal communication. So already, I hope you can see how these are complementary, not competitive by nature for business. I also want to tie this to our brains in general. Okay. So summarized, male brains, tasks, spatial reasoning, goals. Females, intuition, empathy, multitasking, verbal. Our brains have two jobs. The first job is from our subconscious, and it's to keep us safe. And it's 80% of what's happening all the time. We're always scanning around to say, am I okay? How do I feel about this other person? What about the environment that I'm in? And 20% of what our brain is designed to do is to grow, to use our prefrontal cortex to solve problems, to hit goals, to do all the things that we need in business for growth. And so if we start to tie the differences between men and women and those two parts of our brain has to feel safe first before it can grow. And so if we look at the difference between men and women, men are wired to let's go, let's grow, let's hit the goals. And women also want to go and grow and hit the goals, but they're wired to have some intuition and some empathy around how are we going to communicate the goals? How are we going to make sure that everyone feels safe to go and do those things? And so the age of humanity requires that we honor and respect and use both sides of our brain and both the female and male tendencies and hardwiring. Let's go to what happens under stress, which is by nature kind of the business environment. Under stress, men more commonly respond with that fight or flight, which is high testosterone. The amygdala gets really active. Women under stress tend to lean into the tend and befriend aspect of stress, which is driven by oxytocin and the parasympathetic nervous system. Again, we need both. Sometimes we got to go and get out of this situation. We got to fight for what's right. Sometimes we need to slow down and say, everybody okay? Anybody need a drink and a snack? What do we need here to keep moving in this stressful environment? So again, everything that I'm going to share in this episode is based on the fact that we need both. And that information comes from some research from UCLA, psychological review from the year 2000. Well, why does this matter? Because in high pressure, especially post 2020 environments where we're trying to figure out the future of work and move towards something different, collaboration, empathy, emotional intelligence are no longer soft skills. They are survival skills. And women are neurologically and hormonally tuned to lead with those traits. But I want to be really clear, that's not weakness. It's powerful. And it's exactly what we need right now. We need both men and women leading in the age of humanity. I do everything with science and Bible because they're so symbiotic, interconnected. From the beginning, God created mankind in his image, male and female. He created both on purpose, intentionally. He made no mistakes, equal, but different and necessary. This isn't about one style of leadership being better. It's about the complementary design that God had in mind when he made us. If I wanted to summarize it, I guess, one sees kind of the road ahead. That's the way the men are wired, and the other senses if we're on the right path. So together, we move smarter, faster, further, with greater purpose. But we have to acknowledge and respect the differences as valuable and learn to listen to one another through that lens. So in the industrial age, it was very much about fast first, and we're going there with force. And that system often leaned heavily into those masculine traits. It was largely males leading in business for decades. That's just a fact. It was all about competition, hierarchy, and control. But in post 2020, the game has changed. We were in this forced time of reflection where everybody had this time to say, what do I really want in my life? And is this all there is? And it's requiring us to lead differently because most don't want to go back to the way things were. And the ones that do want to go back to the way things were want that because it was the known, because our brain is always thinking same equals safe, and the unknown of creating the age of humanity and leading in the future of work is too uncertain for some. For some, they want to go back because they were winning in that old hierarchical environment, and command and control worked for them for a long time. They think, I'm just going to go back to whatever worked before, because surely if it worked before, it's going to work again. That's not actually true. That's like saying, you know what, we're going to start faxing every document because that used to work, and technology and email is just too inconvenient. It goes down once in a while. We're not going back to that. And so we need to move forward in this age of humanity with curiosity more than control, asking good questions, asking how we can work better together versus the hierarchy of control. We need to move with more connection of understanding each other's differences with respect and love and curiosity versus because I said so and the commanding, this is what we're going to do. What I like to think about is a rhythm of work versus the rush of fast and first. Because when we go rush, we do things to our nervous system that makes us feel unsafe. And so this creating a rhythm of rest and then go forth, rest and then go forth gives our nervous system a stronger sense of safety. I'm not coming at this from a social movement. That's never been my thing. I'm about business outcomes and especially rooting them in the way that God designed us. I do want to create a social movement of the age of humanity because I believe when we work better, we live better because work is such a fundamental part of our lives. It funds our lives, and therefore it is fundamental. And so I believe that making money ought to feel better. That's where I'm coming from. So a lot of this last section about women was from McKinsey's report in 2022, Women in the Workplace. Empathy, listening, and collaboration are no longer nice to have skills, they're business critical. And so the women's perspective isn't an add on. It's not about the numbers. It's about requiring that women have an opportunity to lead and show what the team and the business needs. That doesn't mean I want men to step back because I love me a strong man. I like a man that says, this is where we're going. It's important. I believe in it. Let's go. We need strength. We need to share that fire and that passion, but we need to collaborate with women to say, okay, if we're going, let's make sure that we've got enough gas in the car and snacks and everybody knows where we're going and they feel great about it. Then we can do so much more better together. All right, let's break it down and get practical. Y'all, I've been trying to figure out how to talk about this for years, at least months. And so that's why I'm pausing and hesitating because this topic just gets wonky for people because we hear things through the lens of our emotions. And so if we've had some problems with men or men have had some problems with women, we just start to hear it through our experiences. And so I'm hopeful that by me attempting to share it with facts and science, we can open up our hearts and minds and receive it in a way that says, okay, let's do some things differently. So let's get practical. Whether we're talking about business or at home, here are 5 ways that men and women can partner more powerfully. 1, honor instincts, don't override them. So, men, if you're wired for action, just pause for just a smidge and check in. Check in with how you're feeling, check in with how they're feeling. Just give a little check in. If you're wired for connection, science says more so for women, speak clearly. Speak what you want. Speak what you need. Don't wait for people to guess. If you want pizza for dinner, say you want pizza for dinner. If you want to hire that person, say you want to hire that person and why it's important. Speak with clarity. Number 2, name your needs. Instead of assuming, because we all know what happens when you assume, what do you need from me today? Ask the question. You know, it's really fascinating. We are not always in tune with what we need. And so when someone asks that question, it forces us to ask ourselves the question so that we can then articulate it clearly instead of just moving in autopilot from our subconscious. It also builds safety and trust, which is essential for us to live and work well together and perform well together at work. Number 3, slow down to sync up. Weekly check-ins. Are we solving or are we connecting today? Because those are usually different kinds of conversation, interdependent, yes, but making sure that we are solving problems in a way that keep people connected. That's where I find that the wheels come off a lot of times. A couple of conversations I even had last week with clients, this was the case. There was a recommendation on how to solve the problem, but the way that it was being recommended was going to cause massive disconnection and feelings of disconnect and lack of psychological safety. And so we got to pay attention to both. Decide together when to move fast and when we need to go deep and really think about how people are feeling and what they need from us. Because people can't go fast if they're not feeling safe and connected to where you're going. So you can take off if you want to, but you're either just going to be spinning your tires or you're going to leave people behind. And either way, it's not going to get you the results that you intend. So, number 4, ask, don't assume. You see the theme here? Use curiosity over critique. We have a massive love affair for feedback in business. It's not always helpful to go back and look at everything through the lenses of critique. Sometimes it is. It's not all or nothing. But sometimes it's better to be curious, asking the person, what do you see that I might be missing? And then listen. And if that question gets asked to you, be clear, be transparent, be honest, because if someone's going to ask the question, we have to be willing to step in and participate with what we're really feeling and what we really believe the answer is. Number 5, celebrate the tension. Tension isn't bad. In fact, in order to grow, there needs to be some tension. I mean, I even think back to the days of growing pains when I was a kid. My physical body was growing. It was painful. Growth in our business is going to have some tension and some pain. It's usually a sign of 2 truths, 2 perspectives, the man and the woman pulling in some different directions. And we need to come together instead of just choosing one or the other. How can we integrate both to get an even better response than what either one of us thought of? Dr. Covey used, this was this habit 6 of synergy. There was your way and my way. And if we could sit in the tension and really listen to one another, there was a third alternative, or what Dr. Covey called the higher way. It was better than what either one of us came to the table with. It was higher, it was better. Those are 5 practical tacticals. Okay. Now, here are some questions you can use for reflection. Again, I wanted to make this really action-oriented so we can get better at this. So here are a few questions to journal, or this would be my favorite. If you sat down with your business partner, colleague, boss, whoever it is, who's of the opposite sex, and had this conversation, maybe journal it first and then come together and say, what did you have in yours? And oh my gosh, if you do that, message me and tell me how it went. Maybe we can even come on the show and tell us. Here they are. Number one, what strengths do I bring to the table in conflict or collaboration? So this is for you to ask yourself that question. Number two, where do I tend to default to control or connection? Number three, how can I invite more perspective from the opposite sex with love and curiosity? And how do you see this? As I was preparing this episode, like I said, I've been thinking about this for months. I reached out to a couple of businessmen that I respect and had some conversation with them about how they view this. And it was so helpful. I wanted to make sure that I was going to present this episode with both men and women represented well. Reflection question number 4. When have I felt most respected by a teammate of the opposite gender? Number 5, what might change if we led with knowing instead of proving? Knowing meaning knowing ourselves, knowing each other, instead of trying to prove ourselves or compete with one another. How are you feeling? I'm hopeful that this is one you'll go back and listen to again, maybe download the transcript from YouTube, which you can do. Did you know that? Again, if you would share this with colleagues and others and have meaningful conversations around it, that would be amazing. So, if you take anything away from this, let it be this. God designed men and women to lead together. Science backs it, scripture confirms it, and the world needs it. We don't heal through hierarchy, through top down. We heal through honoring one another. I like to think about the org chart, the infamous triangle org chart, of instead of it being top down, that we lay it down facing forward like an arrow, like the arrow that you push on to play the story. Like the leaders aren't on top, they're out front showing people where to go, what's the vision, where are we headed? And we need men and women to make sure that we can do that well together through relationship. So let's stop trying to win alone or to compete. Let's walk in rhythm together, men and women. And again, if you really loved this episode, found it helpful, share it with someone, especially share it with someone of the opposite sex. What I don't want you to do is have a bunch of women to get together and say what the men need to do differently. Like, see, that's what they said. They need to honor us. No, I want you to go find a man to have the conversation with so that you can start breaking down some of those walls and creating that rhythm together. This is the kind of work that changes lives, it changes businesses, because business is human. Okay, until next time, let's keep building the age of humanity together. All right, love you, mean it, bye.
I'm not coming down. I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down.
Thanks for being here. You can follow us on Instagram, Business is Human, or TikTok, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession. It's a great way to share some of the clips with your colleagues and friends. All right, make it a great day. Love you, mean it.